It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. As we jump into another day of the madness. Gary, how are you?
And I'll say this soap opera madness. I'm doing okay. Doing good. Doing good. I mean, it's a zoo out there every day. I feel like, you know, we've related to a soap opera because, especially over the last couple of weeks, because it will be 2 weeks tomorrow, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2 weeks tomorrow. I start thinking about back in 1986, I was laid off for 3 months. Mm-hmm. All right. So, well, I was laid off from one of my jobs. I was still doing the other job. Mm-hmm. But I had days free. And it's really the only time in my life that I ever watched a soap opera. And it was Young and the Restless. And so I didn't watch it for 20 years.
Right.
20 years goes by. I don't know when it was. I mean, 2006, 2007, 2008. And I remember it was around Christmas time. And I happened to turn on Young and the Restless, and it's like nothing had moved. It was still the same thing.
Well, the name of the show had changed. It had become The Old and the Tired.
Yeah. Victor still pacing in front of his couch in his living room talking about Nikki. And it was just like, I'm like, wow, how do they do that? 20 years and nothing has changed. And I know it's only been 2 weeks, but it's like every day you come in, you're like, wow, everything is just like in a loop over and over and over and over again. I mean, there's new things, but it's still the same loop.
The thing about the soap operas was that they could have a week-long conversation that in the storyline only lasted 10 minutes. It's like, do they just stay in bed all the time? Oh, no, this is the same scene that's been going on for a week. And they're talking, well, good night, honey. Finally on Friday. Good night, honey.
Yes.
Yeah. But it is the madness, you know, as the Nadler turns. What I meant to say was he's the nominee. Man, the tone was so weird. It was so awkward. I was like, okay. On vacation, I got a bunch of popcorn for the grandkids and some of their friends because they love sitting around when we're on vacation in the evening watching old 80s movies. This time it was a 90s movie. It was Forrest Gump. And so I bought a bunch of popcorn. I thought, you guys got to save some of that for me because I don't have enough for everything that's going on politically. And yesterday was just awkward. Yesterday was just weird because you had Nadler coming back going, it is what it is. It's, he's the, he's the nominee. Yeah. He's, it's not going to, it's whatever. And then you had Bennett out of Colorado going, yeah, it could be a landslide. Trump could win in a landslide. Stephanopoulos to a reporter at TMZ going, yeah, I don't think he can serve another 4 years. I don't think he can do it. And so you look at all these things right now, and it's what they've already said it. If they want to do the about face, I don't know if it's the result of the letter that the president sent to the Democrats on Capitol Hill the other day, where he basically told them, hey, come on, this is, we need to get on with this. I'm not going anywhere. And all this talk needs to stop. It's not going to stop because the down ballot, and I think it was Bennett yesterday out of Colorado that was talking about it, that said, the Democrats are going to suffer as a result of it. You could see the Senate and the House pick up seats. And in fact, it was Bennett that was saying, the House and the Senate is going to go with Trump. Because if it's a landslide, there's no doubt in my mind, if it is a landslide, that the Republicans take the House and the Senate.
Well,
now they're only going to, in the Senate, they're only going to get, what's the top number they could get? 53, 54, or somewhere in there? Maybe 55? I don't know. I haven't done the, I thought it was 50. Yeah. I thought it was 54. I may be wrong about that. I'll have to go back and look. But still, they get the majority back. I don't know how many seats they take in the House. That's the thing.
And when you talk about, because that talk has been out there about a landslide, and Democrats will scream going, there is no evidence in the polls, but RealClearPolitics.com, for example, looked at it and said, well, Trump underperformed in 2016 and 2020 as to what the polls said. He did better in both. And so if you take that 3 points there, that 3 or 4 points, you do have landslide numbers, and that's where that's coming from.
Right.
And the Democrats the other day, there was the one poll that came out that showed, it's tightening here and Biden's doing better, and we're like, okay, let's see where the other polls come out. Every poll that has come out, after that has shown, Trump doing better and better in those states. And did you see the? I'll get the polling here. I don't have the window up right now, but the polling that was done on all the different candidates. And still Newsom doesn't do great. They actually had Al Gore.
Yeah, right.
It's like, where did Al Gore come from? Where did Al Gore? Al Gore against Trump? What are you talking about, Al Gore against Trump?
Yeah.
In fact, let me get to it right now. I'll save the audio. We got so much audio here to play yesterday, or to play today, to play yesterday. That made no sense, Gary. But see, I caught the fact that what I said made no sense.
Yeah. It's from yesterday. We'll play it today.
Yes, exactly. And this is Emerson. Trump 48, Newsom 40. General election, Trump 46, Biden 43. If you include all the candidates, Trump 44, Biden 40. Harris, Trump 49, Harris 43. So Harris does worse than Biden. Newsom still does worse than Harris, Trump 48, Newsom 40. Whitmer, Trump 48, Whitmer 38. Trump plus 10 in that Emerson poll. Wow. Okay, where'd the Al Gore go? Oh, they didn't include all of them in here. No, you got to have the Al Gore. I'll find it because I've got it at one of my stories.
Well,
coming up. When the Democrats came out of the meeting yesterday, we'll have this coming up too. You had one of the representatives say, "Well, it was it was like a funeral," and the next response was, "No, it was worse than a funeral."
Right, and that's where they are. And I suspected last week with the governor's thing that they were doing. That they were probably running internals, right, on who had the best chance at beating Trump if it weren't going to be Biden. And the fact of the matter is the reality still hits the Democrats hard on the issues. And the implosion itself leaves a massive wake. There's no way around that. There's no way around, if you think, okay, we'll just forget that a sitting president had to bow out after people on the right have been talking about how bad his cognitive issues were, and the left is just now acknowledging it. And in the last minute, in the home stretch, it had to, the entire thing imploded. Well, that has an effect. That has a huge effect on whoever it's going to be. It doesn't matter. When you look at those, if this person were to run with that person and they started pairing up those Democratic governors, saying, oh, well, this ticket could work, that ticket, you're being delusional because you're not including the fallout, the massive fallout, all of the ashes and the smoke that will remain long past November 5th from Biden stepping down. That's what they didn't include in that.
Let me see here. I've got it here. Al Gore versus Trump. Trump 47, Gore 42. Clinton versus Trump 48-41. Newsom versus Trump 48-40. Trump, by the way, leading all this. Buttigieg versus Trump, 49-39. Warren versus Trump, 49-39. Whitmer versus Trump, 48-38. And Shapiro of Pennsylvania, because his name has come up, he does the worst. Wait a minute, no, I'm sorry. No, he doesn't do the worst. He's down by 8, 46-38. So Harris, even though she does worse than Biden and Newsom does worse than Harris, still Harris is 6 points. Somebody like Shapiro. Now, again, they're hypothetical, so I do it with a grain of salt, but I would think that hypotheticals would be Democrats would be energized in any poll to say, okay, yeah, because, you've heard about, well, Shapiro, if he ran, would just kill Trump.
Yeah.
And so you would figure that Democrats would be eager to say, okay, we're going to give all the now Al Gore. I mean, it's like I have no idea why they put him, why they put him in there, but everybody else, yeah. Oh, by the way, Bernie Sanders, 48-42. Sanders does better than Newsom.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because the brand of California. But I think you bring up the great point. Everybody is assuming that this election is only about, because we live in the bubble of today, is because Biden's age, which it isn't his age, by the way, but that's what the Democrats will say. Other than that, he'd be winning big time. Well, then why is everybody else losing in the polls?
Right.
It's the issues.
It's the issues.
They're insane on the issues.
It's the issues. And really that carries and has been carrying the weight in the polls up until the debate. Think about that. The debate itself. I do think lawfare carried a lot of it after the verdict for Trump, but that's a big issue. That's a huge issue.
Wall Street Journal did their editorial page, the same thing that we've been saying, where you've heard now, well, the lawfare hurt, or the lawfare actually hurt Trump, and we said we never saw that in the polls. And Wall Street Journal backs us up on that, saying, no, that didn't happen in the polls. If you actually look at the polls, no, it didn't happen. They sort of actually remained the same all the way through. And we said in some of the polls, Trump actually got a little bit of a bump.
Right. And on the fundraising, that's one indicator. That means people are motivated. And nobody on the left is motivated now. No one on the left is motivated.
Oh, and did you, the Wall Street Journal, that long article they had just going into the minutia of the January Ukraine meeting, and just, I mean, it was just devastating. And now you've got, the New York Times, came out yesterday again and said, no, he's got to go.
Right.
So he may, and there's a couple of articles saying, look, the only people that Biden's going to listen to are his sister, his wife, and his son. That's it. Nobody else matters to him. Right. And they're in that little bubble, and all of them want him to continue running. But it was a zoo of the day. It was different people saying basically the same thing. But it's just a churn. It's a loop. It's the doom loop over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just yesterday just became so awkward. With the Democrats who were trying to back away, going, well, he's the guy. Okay, that's what we got. He's the nominee. I mean, that to me, it's worse than a Hollywood movie. It's a horrible comedy. It's a really horrible comedy. They've come up with this, trying to make excuses. Nadler just sounded ridiculous. I know what's going on. We all know what's going on. The president sent the letter to Capitol Hill. Hey, get in line. I'm not going anywhere. But once you said it, you can't put that toothpaste back in the tube. It ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen. You've already branded it. It's already over. It's over. And I honestly, we don't like using the words landslide, but this is the making of a landslide. This right here is the making of a landslide. We haven't seen a party turn for this reason in our lifetime. Say what you will about Watergate. But I mean for the incompetence part of it, we've never seen this. That usually happens in a primary. That usually happens long before we get to this point.
Well, and this is, by the way, this is a lesson that should be learned by Republicans, and they should continue this right now. Nothing. What has happened over the last couple of months is unprecedented in American history, but also the Democrats thought, okay, this is all going to go our way. This is going to be a landslide for us. In a couple of months, everything, because if you would have said we would be here right now 4 months ago, most people would say you're out of your mind. And look where we are,
right.
Lawfare falling apart. Everything going on with Biden, the infighting now between the Democrats, see Joy Reid, the elite white racist Democrats.
Well, exactly. Well, and then the late night guys, Seth Meyers and Colbert. They're off of the Biden train. They jumped off.
And you look at everything, which is, again, you don't know what's going to happen. In this day and age, in any election, you don't know what's going to happen, so you don't take anything for granted, including Trump should not take anything for granted right now.
Right. No, it ain't
because
over till it's over.
Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen here because this is, you think about it, 4 months ago, if you would have said, here's where we are right now.
No, you need to keep scoring on the team, even if your opposition isn't scoring. You need to keep making those touchdowns every chance you get.
866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. On a hot summer day, the last thing you want to feel is a blast of warm air when you turn on your air conditioning. A malfunctioning AC system will leave you uncomfortably shifting in your seat. Not to mention, it can affect the safety and performance of your entire vehicle and your productivity. Keep your AC system running smooth and your deliveries on schedule this summer with the following maintenance tip. Make sure the condenser on the front of your cab is clean and double check that your compressor belt is tight and in good condition.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Here is Senator Michael Bennet from Colorado on CNN yesterday.
My colleague Dana Bash reported that you, Senator Jon Tester, and Senator Sherrod Brown all said during that lunch that you don't think President Biden can win in 2024. Is that true?
Well, it's true that I said that, and I did say that behind closed doors, and you guys and others asked whether I had said it, and that is what I said. So I figured I should come here and say it publicly.
Why do you think he can't win in November?
I just think this race is on a trajectory that is very worrisome if you care about the future of this country. Joe Biden was 9 points up at this time. The last time he was running, Hillary Clinton was 5 points up. This is the first time in more than 20 years that a Republican president has been up in this part of the campaign. Donald Trump is on track, I think, to win this election and maybe win it by a landslide and take with him the Senate and the House.
All right, so it's interesting because he must have been listening to our show because that was almost word for word what we said on yesterday's show and sort of repeated today when we talked about when you hear about landslide, where that's coming from. We don't sit there and just say it's going to be a landslide because we don't want the Democrats to win. It's
we're not.
Where are the polls and
right? We're not cheerleaders. We look for things that show us things. I mean, we want Trump to win, but the thing is we're not going to say it just for the sake of saying it out of nothing. We want to see the numbers and the trend going that way, and it's a landslide in the making.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Friday Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Well, the Republicans are back. What you really saw over the last almost 2 weeks has been the Democrat criticism of the president. Republicans now we'll split this up because we'll start with Elise Stefanik. Mike Johnson speaks. A few others. Steve Scalise speaks. By the way, Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, got up there and said, "Where are all the reporters?" And he with a big smile, he's like, "Where are all the reporters? The reporters are normally always here, I'm paraphrasing here. You could, to hear what we have to say, and it seems like all the reporters now are following the Democrats because the Democrats are having the meeting." Yeah. But here's Elise Stefanik here as the Republicans are back and now commenting on everything that's going on. There you go.
Good morning. There is no longer any doubt that Joe Biden is unfit to be our commander-in-chief. The Biden White House, far-left House Democrats, and the mainstream media are in complete disarray because they know this to be true and have been caught participating in one of the greatest media cover-ups in American history. For the last 3.5 years, House Republicans and the American people have been demanding details about Joe Biden's mental and physical decline. But every time we raise these legitimate concerns, far-left Democrats and their loyal stenographers in the mainstream media rushed to Biden's defense, claiming that the clearly diminished Joe Biden was as sharp as ever and accusing us of peddling conspiracy theories. The cover-up is over and accountability is here. For years, House Republicans have known that Joe Biden is unfit for office. We also know that he will go to any lengths to maintain his grip on power. This is why it is so crucial that we take every possible measure to ensure that the 2024 presidential election is free from election interference and is constitutional. As part of that ongoing effort, House Republicans are bringing to the floor this week Congressman Chip Roy's Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, which requires individuals to provide proof of citizenship when registering to vote in federal elections. Not surprisingly, the Biden White House, whose far-left open border agenda has let in millions, over 10 million illegal immigrants, is against our bill. This is a very simple and logical concept rooted in the Constitution. Only American citizens should vote in American elections. Also this week, House Republicans are moving Mary Miller's CRA to stop Joe Biden's radical efforts to roll back women's rights and change Title IX to allow biological men to access women and girls' bathrooms, locker rooms, and sports. Next week, we are looking forward to uniting in Milwaukee behind President Donald J. Trump's America First agenda, which created the greatest economy in generations, the securest border in modern history, the lowest gas prices in years, and peace through strength around the world. With that, we're honored to be joined by Chip Roy,
and we'll get to that coming up here in a little bit, but it's important to look because the Republicans really haven't said much, and so you're wondering, okay, what are they going to come out? What are they going to come out with now that they're back? And they're hitting everything. Yeah, they're hitting the fact that, hey, we were called conspiracy theorists for this entire thing, and now you know the truth. And it was the Democrats who were lying. The next thing that they put out there is the border. And for the life of me, to show you how lost Democrats are, and I'm still shocked about it. When I heard this on vacation, I went, "You got to be kidding me!" Well, the Republicans are in for it now because the Democrat House is going to unite behind the president to stop the legislation proposed by the Republicans to put it into official law that only citizens can vote in federal elections. We can't have just citizens voting in federal elections.
It's insane. Foreign influence on American elections.
Yeah. It's insane. but it was the marketing that, all right, now we've got them. All right, they think they've got us now with the Biden thing. Yeah. We've got something here. It's like, are you nuts? I mean, this is the thing. And then we'll get to more because they are pounding the fact that, on the whole Title IX thing. Right. And saying, we support women. The Democrats don't support women. And they don't get any pushback on this when the reporters ask the questions. Right. There's no pushback. And I think I'm so glad you brought that up when we looked at the polling numbers of Trump compared to everybody else. And it's like, well, it's Trump versus Biden. And, we know the problems with Biden, but Biden's actually doing better than everyone else. So why would all these other people, why would they? Because they're not Biden. They don't have the apparent, cognitive problems that he has.
Right.
What would be going on? As you said, it's the issues. They're insane on the issues, and America knows it.
And those issues haven't gone away. It was driving everything leading up to the fallout after the debate. And I think that's right now what the Democrats, they clearly don't see that. They don't believe that. But they're not the ones being polled. The American voter is. And that's where we are. Reality still hurts them. So this delusional thought that they could come up with a dream ticket at the last minute and that all the smoke from the implosion would clear and allow that dream ticket to go on to victory is delusional on so many levels. But first and foremost, because the issues haven't changed. In fact, the more radical the nominee, then the more you're going to get pushback from the voter. And that's exactly what you're seeing right now. On the issues, the Democrats lose. And this is where we are. They're never going to admit that. That's not going to be if they lose by a landslide in November, they're still not going to, they're going to say, well, no, we need to promote our radical agenda even more because the American people are too stupid to understand our radical agenda, just like they've done repeatedly. So that's something they're never going to concede, but they don't have to. The more radical they get, the more the pushback there will be, and that's where we were before the debate.
I was reading on X, Twitter, Brit Hume's comments about Senator Patty Murray with a forceful statement questioning whether Biden is the right candidate, where she said we need to see a much more forceful and energetic candidate on the campaign trail in the very near future in order for him to convince voters that, he's the person. Brit Hume writes, these Democrats questioning Biden's conditions are talking about one thing, beating Donald Trump. Nothing about Biden's fitness to serve another term as president, let alone his ability to serve this one out. It's all about the party's political fortunes, nothing to do about the country and whether the president is actually able to serve right now.
Right.
And we'll get to some of, Doocy had the question yesterday. The ICBM is in the air. Who makes the call, Jill?
Right. Hunter?
Yeah. Who makes the call? And she said he has a team.
That's not good enough.
The team doesn't make the decision. The president of the United States makes that decision.
Yep. That's the way it is. This is where we are, and that's exactly what we've been talking about. We talked about it the night. Look, you and I have been saying he's unfit as commander-in-chief for a long, long time. The botched exit of Afghanistan. I don't know how many examples you need. Pretty much everything since January 20th of 2021.
Well,
and now
lying to the American public about what the general said.
Yeah, and
disqualified him.
Exactly. So many layers and items out of the botched exit of Afghanistan alone. That was not a small thing. And now you're at this point, and we pointed out the night of the debate, as the fallout started right away, we said Democrats know that if you're saying he can't run, you're saying he's not fit for office now.
Right.
And they've already said it. They've said that he shouldn't run. He can't serve another 4 years. And they're saying it because of his behavior right now, not something they're afraid of happening in the future, that there might be a decline later. They're saying it because of things we're already seeing, which means he's not fit today, right now.
Right. And it's not a one-off. It's not just because of what happened at the debate.
No.
They've been lying to the American public and realize now that the public knows it. What is it? It's got to be, what is it, close to, it was 82%?
Yeah.
I think was the last I saw, people believing that Biden, shouldn't run. He doesn't have the capabilities to be president.
Right.
They're saying that.
Now.
That's the analysis now from the American public.
Based on things they're seeing now.
He's not capable of running the presidency now.
Right.
And the Democrats are making, he can't win. He can't. Well, why can't he win?
Right.
Because the American public is looking at Biden and saying, number one, his policies are insane. Number two, you're seeing the movement in the polls because now Americans are convinced and Democrats are convinced that he isn't capable of being president of the United States, and that's now.
Right. The late night comedian Seth Meyers saying, going off on Trump and then saying we need a candidate who can be coherent, essentially. And I don't have the quote in front of me, but he's basically that he can someone who can articulate all the bad things about Trump. He can't do anything. He can't articulate anything. Then he can't be president now. This is not about him having one moment. It's been a decline since he took office. Go back and watch the debates of 2020 versus the debate that happened nearly 2 weeks ago. Watch them side by side. It is a measurable decline, and in recent months, it has been a further decline, a more rapid decline. And all of us who are familiar with it, who are caretakers, millions of us, we know what we're seeing. We know what we're seeing. Americans know what we're seeing, and now the Democrats can't deny it. They've been lying about it all along, trying to build this delusional, hey, he's doing one-handed push-ups behind closed doors, BS. Well, the fact of the matter is there's no way around it now. You can't hide it. And he's not fit for office now.
And then when you see the number of the Wall Street Journal articles, just devastating. But there's other articles out there because everybody's covering it now, going through, okay, who was hiding what Biden, who was hiding it, who's responsible in the White House. There's articles going through all the different aides and what they think. And I'm like, it's just devastating because it's not going to go. You may have, Joe Biden may be the nominee, but the stories are impossible to reverse. And the Wall Street Journal and Politico and the New York Times and the Washington Post aren't going to come out and say, oh, okay, we were lying about Biden not being capable of being president.
Right.
They can't do that.
One of the things that we have to take in, the reason the question to Karine Jean-Pierre was so important the other day about who makes the call. If an ICBM is in the air, who makes the call? Is because if an enemy is going to attack, they're going to attack when we're at our weakest. Crimea. Russia took Crimea during the Obama administration. Russia goes after Ukraine during the Biden administration. Our enemies know. And they would have several months right now of a weak president if they were to attack anytime soon. This cannot continue. He's not fit for office. What they do about the election, I can't tell you. He should no longer be president. Full stop.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. We'll have a ton more audio. Have Pete Doocy's back and forth with Karine Jean-Pierre. Hear from more Republican leaders, too, because officially the Republicans, they've been off.
Yeah.
And so they got back yesterday, and we love analyzing, because we've criticized Republicans and we don't believe they're messaging correctly. I think yesterday was a day where they did message correctly, and we'll have Chip Roy talking about the SAVE Act, where Americans, American citizens, the push to have only American citizens voting in federal elections here, and it's just everything they're bringing up is slam dunk. Yeah. Everything they're bringing up, 70+% of Americans agree with.
Right,
and that's what you need to do in politics.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Oh, what a zoo this is. I'm going to play some more audio here. This is Senator Casey, is in a tight race in Pennsylvania. And over the last week, it's like, he really won't comment on it. He really won't comment on it. CNN got him yesterday. Here was his response.
Do you support keeping Biden at the top of the ticket?
Well, I've said so numerous times. You heard my remarks over a week ago in Scranton.
You don't think you don't have any concerns about his ability to serve 4 more years?
No.
I mean, you saw him in the debate stage.
And Manu, my job is not to be a commentator or an analyst.
But you just became a commentator when you said no.
Yeah, you just jumped in.
When you said yes, you should stay.
Yeah.
You have any concerns about his inability to serve 4 more years? No. Well, you saw him on the debate stage. My job is not to be a commentator. That's where the reporter has to say, but you're commentating.
Well, it's what he would like to say is
you're commenting. Excuse me.
What he would like to say is, could you please just let me go home? I just want to go home. I just don't want to answer any more questions anymore about Biden. I can't. Can we just not talk about Biden? Can we have one day? This is their problem. It's not going away. What do you do? Here we are 117 days out. What do you do for the next 117 days? You got 4 more months of this. Forget 4 more years. How are you going to get through 4 more months? If you're a Democrat in office, what are you going to do? I mean, we talked about Biden going into hiding, which he can't do. Democrats are going to want to go into hiding. What about those when they get to the August break? They've got to go back and campaign at home.
And right now, and unless it's self-inflicted, there is no Trump news.
No.
There is no negative Trump news.
Right.
It's all the lawfare. I don't see how anything comes before the election, and both the immunity decision from the Supreme Court and the unanimous jury verdict decision from the Supreme Court is going to tear apart those New York cases.
Right. And you can
And that's already done. That's already people have already digested that.
Yep, it's already been quantified. They've already priced that in. And so you don't have anything, as you mentioned, unless there is some kind of geopolitical thing that happens. Unless, as you mentioned, a self-inflicted Trump wound from, whatever. I don't know what that would be, though, because think about it. the nature of Trump really hasn't changed in all these years. And so I don't know of anything that could totally derail and really hurt him to an extent that it would be a concern.
You know, things are so crazy right now. I wouldn't be surprised that September Oprah decides to do a special show with Donald Trump and talk about how great Trump has been over all these years.
Right. They just convert completely.
With,
as we've always said, with Trump is the best candidate.
with special guest Whoopi Poopy.
Yeah, exactly.
But what might happen? Let's go to Frank in California here. Frank, welcome. You're on Red Eye Radio. Welcome to the show. Hi, Frank.
Oh, hey, thanks for my call. Yeah, I really think, and I know they're talking about not doing it. They're going to do 25th Amendment at some point. They have to, because this charade can't go on. You got a guy that doesn't even know where he is half the time, what he's saying. It's obvious, and it's going to get worse. This doesn't get better. It doesn't improve.
Right.
So when they do the 25th Amendment, at that point, he doesn't want to go. He doesn't want to stop being the nominee. He doesn't want to step aside. They're going to have to force him out. And that's the only thing that's going to take it back on criticizing Trump again. Like you just said, there's no negative Trump news now. The only way to do that, to get negative Trump news, if they want it, is they got to get Biden out of the picture. And if he won't go quietly, they got to force him out with the 25th Amendment. That's my take on it.
Mm.
Well, thanks so much. And I'm glad you brought it up, because there's been a lot of talk on the 25th Amendment. Here's the problem with the 25th Amendment. You would create a civil war within the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
Because it would be led by Kamala Harris.
Right.
She would have to lead it.
Right.
She would have to lead it, and that would cause fury inside of the Democratic Party. Understand that in normal times, you might say, well, yeah, the 25th Amendment, whatever normal times are, but in normal times, it's just a hypothetical, so I'm going to use that. For normal times, you might say, yeah, this would be brought up and seriously considered. But you've got the Biden, you've got the Democratic Party, they thought the major issue they had was that they would protect democracy. Well, Trump's up 11 points on that. Biden's out there saying, 14 million people in the primaries voted for me. You're not going to take this away from me. We must protect democracy. The Democrats can't take it away. Well, there would be a civil war inside the Democratic Party if that happened.
Yeah.
Because she would be leading it. You would have the charge from all of the Biden surrogates. Forget about the Republicans. Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party is trying to destroy what's going on. Joy Reid yesterday was out there, talking about, we'll get to that story, that the elitist, racist Democrats are the ones that's trying to get rid of Biden. Does she flip and say, oh, no, Kamala Harris isn't doing that? So that's a huge problem. The other problem with the 25th Amendment is that Biden you can challenge it. Let's say you get the vice president, majority of the cabinet saying you've got to go. He can appeal it. Yeah. Remember, the 25th Amendment, been around, introduced in 1965, really came about because of wanting to have the transition process after the Kennedy assassination. Mm-hmm. And so it was ratified in 1967, but that was the reason, for it, to make sure you had that, transfer of power that was pretty seamless. That seems to be an important thing, and it is an important thing, to have. But you need, I believe it's, make sure I've got it right here. You need 2/3 of the vote. If the cabinet and Kamala Harris says he's got to go, he can appeal it. 2/3 of Congress, both houses, have to agree with it.
Yeah.
And as the Wall Street Journal said the other day, you've got all he needs is 34 in the Senate, and you've got 34 people in the Senate that are Democrats older than he is.
Right.
Or
yeah.
not all of them older, but a significant portion that have been allies of him for the longest time in the Senate, and many are actually older than him. And so that's the problem that you have. But what you would create would be, there would be a civil war inside the Democratic Party. And that's the problem. And they're like, okay, do we lose that way or do we lose this way? And it's a great point to the last caller. I don't know how they go.
Well, look, if you did that the Civil War move for the party, that Civil War is going to continue. There is somewhat of a Civil War anyway, but the radicals lead, and the rest of them are radicals anyway, so they don't have a problem following. And so I think my theory would most likely apply here. I think it would be the most logical move for Democrats, and that is let him lose to Trump. We blame him. He's going to be gone anyway. And we let him lose to Trump. We let the Republicans try and fix his mess, which they're not going to get done in 4 years, or maybe only 2 years that they have. They're going to have to, in fact, usher in, if they want to get on top of inflation, they're going to have to do some moves that raise interest rates or keep them high, keep them where they're at. And we let the economy, and we just point the finger at Trump for 4 years, as we're going to do anyway, and come back in 28 and let Biden ride off into the sunset. I don't know what you say between now and November 5th. You just, I guess, keep repeating, well, he's the nominee. And everyone is getting it handed to them. ABC made Stephanopoulos issue a statement after he commented to someone who is a TMZ reporter on the street and said he doesn't think, Stephanopoulos, he doesn't think that Biden could serve another 4 years. So he had to come out later in the day, several hours ago, and ABC forced him to make a statement on that. You better get in line, Stephanopoulos. How dare you tell the truth? But you can't deny it. You can just walk around it or just flat out lie, which they're capable of doing, including people like Chuck Schumer. And that's the biggest wall you're going to hit on a 25th Amendment thing, by the way, in the Senate. It's going to be people, as you mentioned, like Schumer, all the old guard, and really old guard. They're going to be up there going, well, no. And the numbers just aren't there to get the 25th Amendment thing done.
Well, and if you would have to do it, because I went back because I was trying to see what's the last article written. It was a week ago, so we were a week into this, or 6 days into this already when the story came out. Democrats weigh mid-July vote to formally tap Biden as the nominee. The party could formally nominate Biden as early as July 21st. That's 11 days from now.
Yeah.
So you're going to move the 25th Amendment, that you're going to have, Kamala Harris in the next 11 days say that Biden is not capable, and Janet Yellen, who said, no, there's been no discussion from the cabinet whatsoever, that they're going to decide to do this and do this in 11 days from now, because that's, they've been talking over and over. And when that story came out last week, you didn't hear a lot of vocal pushback on that. And with Biden coming out, because these things normally, if this had happened a year ago, this could have gone on for a year, even if they thought that he should be removed from office, just to get the political support to do it. How do you get the political support where Biden has absolutely come out and said, I am not going anywhere. I am fine. And then if he does anything good, last night, the NATO speech, that was mostly good. See, he can speak.
Yeah.
And the whole point is, no, it's not about whether he can speak, and it's not about his age. It's whether he has a cognitive ability to actually do critical thinking and make decisions at a moment. It's not about him reading. So this is going back and forth. The Democratic Party is not set to remove him from office, even if they wanted to do it.
Right.
And they probably wish he would go, but it would create such a massive civil war. And think about this to begin with. I mean, the left would go crazy because I could see it right now. Kamala Harris is now usurping democracy and she wants to be the next president, and she doesn't want to go through the primary process, or whatever they called it, the quick open convention primary process that we talked about on yesterday's show, I believe, yesterday or the day before, that you have some Democrats that have come out and said, well, here's what we want to do. We'd want to have a quick primary. Well, it would be her, because she'd need to lead it. Imagine Kamala Harris leading the 25th Amendment?
Yeah. Yeah. And then campaigning.
And then keep in mind, in 2019, she was the first major candidate to drop out. She dropped out in early December of 2019 because she couldn't raise the money. And he's the guy. He's the guy. There's no way around it. They're not happy about it. They're certainly not enthusiastic about it. There's no momentum at all for Biden. They just have to sit here and wait for the inevitable to happen. Yeah, there is no momentum for Biden inside the Democratic Party, but there is no momentum for the 25th Amendment.
Right.
Because the fear of the civil war that would be created. And so they're in a position where, it reminds me of Miracle, where they have the American coach, and his name just Herb Brooks, but in the movie where there's a minute left and the Russians have always won, so they never pull their goalie, and they're like going, there's a minute left, they didn't pull their goalie, and Herb Brooks looks at his assistant coach and says, they don't know what to do. They've never been down in a game. They don't know what to do. And in this case, nobody expected this. Nobody expected this 4 months ago to be where we are today, and they have no idea what the hell to do.
Right. Because you go through the whole 25th Amendment thing, and then you remove him from office, and then Kamala loses. Ouch. Yeah. Wow. Nope. You got to tape it back together, glue it back together, and just wait it out.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Independents with carrier authority should be mindful that negotiation strength varies as the week progresses. Typically, the highest rates across major segments are paid for loads negotiated on Sundays, and the highest volume of loads for all segments is seen on Mondays. Also, the weekday that tends to be the best for flatbed negotiations, yielding the best rates. Owner-operators tend to have less negotiation strength on Tuesday, which shows the lowest weekday spread between brokers' offered rates and actual paid rates. Broker offers tend to rise by Wednesday as the end of the week is in sight. This day also seems optimal for the 3 o'clock hustle, so-called for its reliance on that afternoon time of day, when brokers are getting nervous, to improve negotiation strength. Stay mindful of this system to maximize your revenue. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Okay, I'm going to hold off on this audio cut of Doocy, Pete Doocy from Fox News and Karine Jean-Pierre, because we just don't have enough time. It's a couple minutes long, but it's worth playing, but we'll get to that. Plus, more of the Republican leadership speaking yesterday. They really haven't said much.
No.
Because they weren't around last week.
Right.
So I know you and I were talking about, okay, what do the Republicans do when they come back? How do they frame the argument now? And I thought yesterday they did a wonderful job in framing the arguments. Yeah, because they brought up the three most important things: the fact that the American public has been lied to by this administration about the cognitive problems of the president, the insanity of the border. So they're hitting the SAVE Act, which is, hey, if you want to vote in an American election, if you want to vote in the federal elections, well, you've got to be a citizen of the United States. That is a absolute slam dunk. And Title IX, the legislation for Title IX, to say, sorry, it's about biological men, competing, using the same bathrooms as biological women. That's insanity. And so those three issues to begin with are all winners for them.
Yep.
So we'll get to that and more coming up.
On our website, RedEyeRadioShow.com. Show info with stations, podcasts, and more. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Thank you for being here. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose. That's because our show ends at 6 a.m. Eastern Time, 5 a.m. Central, and across the board, as we all know, and a couple of minutes after the show's done. If you can't listen live overnight, our show becomes our podcast, which is everywhere.
Yeah.
So as we were talking about the 25th Amendment, that's the problem with it. Would be the last thing that Democrats would consider because they know it would be a civil war within the party.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And what a mess that would be. And they've got to get it done. They would have to get that done in the next couple of weeks. We were telling you about the timeline because the confidence, remember, just a couple of weeks ago, the confidence for Biden. We're going to move this up because we want to make sure that Biden isn't challenged at all. We're going to move up. We're not going to wait for the DNC to have the vote. We're going to have the delegates vote a month before.
Yeah.
Well, a month before now is just less than 10 days away.
Right.
So if you're going to use the 25th Amendment, how in the world are you going to use it? Axios had this story, that some DNC delegates want more time before nominating Biden. This was last Wednesday. Delegates to the Democratic National Convention are pleading for as much time as possible to decide whether President Biden should lead their ticket. Delegates and state party officials told Axios, because it's Axios, why it matters. The delegates are still in the dark about when they are required to hold their virtual roll calls to nominate their presidential candidate. Democrats from lawmakers facing re-election to rank-and-file activists who make the party run are still spooked by Biden's jarring debate performance last week. This was last Wednesday, this article came out. They want time and options in case Biden steps aside or is forced out by donors or lawmakers. In late May, the Democratic National Committee announced plans to nominate its ticket via virtual roll calls of delegates weeks before the party's convention in Chicago, which starts on August 19th. Officials have said the roll call needs to happen before August 7th, which had been the deadline to get on the ballot in Ohio. The governor of Ohio, though, since signed legislation to move the deadline to August 23rd, but Democrats claim they are skeptical that it will hold, citing Ohio Republican shenanigans. Biden is insistent that he is not dropping out, telling his team Wednesday, I am the leader of the Democratic Party. No one is pushing me out. What Democrats are saying, one party delegate from the Northeast told Axios, we need as much time as possible. There's no way we can make a decision in 2 or 3 weeks. See, this is the problem. They can't even decide what to do here to get to the point of when to hold the vote, which was so clear just a little over a month ago.
Yeah.
No, it's no problem whatsoever. In fact, before the debate, it was clear you were going to the week of the 21st.
Right.
We're still waiting to hear what Biden is going to do, said the chair of the Texas Democratic Party. We have to feel that we can win this election. Our national Democratic leadership has to make decision on what is ultimately the best for America and this world. Biden's romp through the primary states would make it replacing him difficult unless Biden agreed to release his delegates. The primary is over. And in every state, the will of the Democratic voters was clear. Joe Biden will be the Democratic Party's nominee for president, DNC Chair Jamie Harrison said in a statement. Delegates are pledged to reflect the voters' will, and over 99% of delegates are already pledged to Joe Biden heading into the convention, he added. You haven't seen a weakening of that. You've got more Democrats coming out and saying, we don't think he can last 4 years. But you also have other Democrats coming out and saying, no. You look at the leadership of the party is all behind Biden at this moment. How you go from that to the 25th Amendment in less than a month, maybe less than 3 weeks, I don't see how it happens.
I don't see it happening. There's just no way to get there. It would have to be something catastrophic. But by that point, I mean, where physically now that he's unable and all this, if there was an even worse decline in a short period of time, but by that point you would have the Biden family on board and you wouldn't need the 25th Amendment. The only way it's going to happen is if the Bidens decide it's going to happen. The 25th Amendment thing's not going to happen.
Axios is reporting that the DNC will not hold the virtual roll calls until after the convention's Rules Committee meets on July 19th and the Credentials Committee meets on July 21st. That would mean the delegate voting could happen between the last week of July and the first few days of August.
Yeah.
And if that happens, it's done.
Yeah. Right.
Can you imagine bringing in the 25th Amendment after he has been nominated? Because Kamala Harris would have to lead that charge.
Mm-hmm.
And you would have to have, I've heard the names thrown out. You'd have to have the leadership of the Democratic Party. You would have to have Schumer, Jeffries, both in the last day. We support Biden as the nominee.
Right. I'm with Joe.
So you hear those two would have to go. Pelosi would probably have to go. Obama, they say, would have to, to go. But if Obama shows up, Biden may just, if Obama's there, it's like, get the hell out of here. Yeah. People have this perception that Obama and Joe are great friends and Obama's been running the White House. We've always said they don't like each other.
No.
Where's this? People just throw out stuff, and it's like that isn't true. So Obama may. I've heard Hillary has to go, Bill has to go, Obama has to go, the whole Democratic leadership has to go, and then the response is none of those people matter to the Bidens. Joe only cares about what his son, his wife, and his sister thinks.
Right.
That's it.
Right. And that's where, again, we're down to a half dozen people. And until those half dozen people all say he's not going to run, he's the guy.
And then let's say you do it, as Wall Street Journal laid out the scenario. The Kamala Harris does it, and they boom. All right, the majority of the cabinet, of your cabinet, and I say you're out, you're out. Well, then he gets to appeal that to Congress, and 2/3 of Congress has to agree that he's gone. And they're saying, and Wall Street Journal points out, all he needs is 34 senators, and that's done. Can you imagine if that happens? Then there's going to be a civil war. If either way, there's going to be a civil war inside the Democratic Party.
And
because it would be the attempted coup has failed. So then...
And then it's even worse And let's say they got it done. Let's say you pulled off the whole 25th Amendment thing, and he's no longer president, and Kamala runs, and she loses. Oh. Wow. The numbers aren't there. You don't have the numbers for this to happen. The cabinet's not on board. It's not going to happen. Keep in mind who these people are. They're delusional. That man is a woman.
Yeah.
And if you say otherwise, we'll put you in prison.
I'm glad you brought that up because it's like people are looking for some type of logic from the Democratic Party.
Right. They don't
and
think
it's like
us.
Remember, they don't think like us. They're the ones that sit there and go, what are you talking about? A man can be a woman if a man says so. I mean, that's pure insanity, yet it's commonplace, and the 99% of the members of Congress in the Democratic Party are for men competing against women in sports.
Right.
That's insane.
Right.
It's absolutely insane. So you've got to take that, as we've always said, you've got to take that and apply that to every other issue that they have.
Right.
When they sit there and tell you, well, we can run the grid on solar and wind.
Inflation's not a problem. It's transitory.
Right. Everything is a line of BS.
The economy is doing great. Yeah. There is no problem. The border is secure. This is who they are. You're not going to have the cabinet go, oh, yeah, no, he needs to go. Nope. They're just going to wait out a very long summer. And that's going to be it. That's going to be it. There's no way around it. Unless Joe himself, Carville on with Chris Cuomo on News Nation, it's inevitable Joe will decide to step down. No, it isn't. You're delusional. It's not inevitable. It's possible.
Well, what would be the incident? Because there would have to be another incident or debate, but if the next, or a golf tournament.
I think they're debating about the golf tournament.
But the next debate is after the convention's over.
Right. Yeah, if it even happens. You're going to let that happen? You're going to let that happen?
When you said that, if it even happens, I was going to, do you mean the Democratic convention or the debate?
Both. Both. Exactly. No, that's it. Because if they do the virtual nomination thing, they get that done in the first few days of August, and then all of a sudden, well, we don't believe that it's, safe. They call out Chicago. They throw Chicago under the proverbial bus. Well, with all the violence in Chicago and whatnot, we don't think it's safe for the delegates. It is the nightmare that just keeps getting worse. And they have until November 5th. And even after that, you have until January 20th of next year. Unless Joe Biden steps up to a podium and says, I'm not running, nothing's going to change.
Certainly not going to change. I don't see any scenario where it changes in the next 2 weeks.
No.
Because they're not. Oh, he's supposed to do the big boy press conference. Will he actually do it? Because they've promised press conferences before, and it never happens. One or two questions are taken.
Right.
And you see it because the NATO speech. See, Joe Biden is fine. He read the speech. It's not about whether he can read a speech.
Not about a prompter.
Yeah. And so you see the immediate reaction is, we need to defend Joe. And then when it comes down to, they look at it and their best chance, even in their own internal polling, is Joe. That's why when the Democrats came out of the meeting, one Democrat said it was like a funeral. They asked another one, a Democrat, he goes, no, it was worse than a funeral.
Right. Because what they'll never admit is the issues, the reality is what's killing their chances. It was that way before the debate. The fact that Joe Biden is best in the polls tells you everything. It's the issues.
866-90 Red-Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. We've got some just insane audio coming up here. Doocy. I didn't play it yet, did I? No, I didn't play the Doocy.
No.
And there's so much going on, I'm telling you. It's just moving so quick. But the Doocy, Karine Jean-Pierre back and forth today we'll have coming up. Plus, hear from Chip Roy and the Speaker of the House as Republicans are back and commenting on all this insanity that is going on. I think one thing that, that people might not think of, which, again, when you're in the moment, how important is it? But all this stuff is historic.
Yeah.
Everything from the lawfare until now is going down in history. This is going to be a time when, people look back 200 years from now, and this is going to be in the history books, and it's going to be a prominent part of the history books. Now, we don't know the conclusion as of yet, but you combine everything that's going on now with the lawfare that has gone on, and it's going to go down in history.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, it'd be like when they talk about, John Adams going after his adversaries, that's hundreds upon hundreds of years old that happened, yet that still, is solid in history.
And history has a different set of eyes than the current back and forth that we see. Historians will look at this. I can't imagine 20, 30, 40 years from now, they look back and go, what in the world was going on?
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across the USA, we are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Wow. Welcome to the soap opera. Every single day. Moving very slow. It's the same arguments over and over and over again. We're in this loop now. The doom loop, as I saw written the other day, for the Democrats. And, you were making a point. I know you made it on the air, but you made it off the air a lot. You just said, look, over the last week, Democrats looked at internal polling.
Yep.
And they look at it, and nobody's happy with Biden. And, yeah, it's going to be a landslide loss, but Democrats themselves don't believe anybody else could do any better.
Right.
And
they look at the Emerson poll. They look at, I'm sure they did their own internals right away. We were on vacation, but I told my wife, I said, they're doing internals right now. The Democratic Party is doing internals to see what dream ticket could beat Trump, could outperform Biden. And they came back with nothing. They came back with what the Emerson poll shows. Biden performs better in the polls against Trump than any of them, and that says a lot about where their party is.
Now, that, again, it's all hypotheticals. If it actually happened, you don't know how the public would respond to it. Mm-hmm. Hypotheticals are different than this is the candidate against Trump. But they look at it, and, again, they believe the polls. By the way, I have not got one Republican who has stated that they believe that the majority of polls are not accurate.
No.
Just wanted to...
Not one.
Everybody's very happy with the polling, and they believe they're quite accurate. But if they're not accurate, it's not accurate in more favor of Trump.
Right.
By the way, that may actually be true.
Actually, I might subscribe to that. There would be good reason, I think, to believe that the polls right now don't show the real numbers and how big the lead is for Trump, but there's no way to prove that until after the election.
Real Clear Politics did an article on it just stating that, look how much Biden was up at this point back in 2020. He didn't win by that amount. It was off by about 4 points.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Hillary. It was off by, I think, 3 points, for 3 or 4 points for Hillary also. So it's like, okay, if you look at those last two elections and you add that hypothetically to what Trump actually has, because the polls always show him underperforming, then he's up by 7 or 8, which then is landslide territory.
Yep.
For a presidential election.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. I just every day I wake up, I'm just like, okay, where's this going to go today? Where's this going to go today? Where's this going to go today? And nothing's good for the Democrats. I can actually state that I have never been in this particular situation reporting on a presidential election like this, where you cannot tell me one issue where the Democrats dominate.
Right.
Forget about the complete cluster of the Biden situation. But as you pointed out earlier, well, why are all the other candidates hypothetically doing worse? Hypothetically, you think, well, they might be doing better because people would say, I like that better than Biden.
Mm-hmm.
But Biden's polling the best. And as you said, everybody forgets this isn't just about Biden or personalities. It is about issues.
Yep. And when the polls start coming together in an election season in the summer before the election, then we start seeing what's really affecting people. And obviously, the economy with inflation and the border. And those two are neck and neck. They're basically tied for number one. And Biden caused both of those. His party caused both of those and is enabling the border situation. There's no way around any of that. You don't have, what did you have? Maybe one or two Democrats, border state Democrats along the way that issued concern on the border?
Yeah.
Other than that, none of them.
Nope.
Now their party's fighting for people from other countries to be able to vote.
Yeah, it's pure insanity.
So what if Trump says, okay, my friends from Russia can come over and vote? Just to drive him crazy.
Well, and we'll play some of this coming up. Some of the Republicans yesterday we played earlier. We already played Elise Stefanik, but Chip Roy coming up, Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House.
Mm-hmm.
They were right on. They were right on target on everything. They were right on the fact of, because this is the whole point. Look, Democrats have been lying to you this entire time about Biden. They called us conspiracy theorists. How do you argue that point?
Right.
You can't. How do you argue the point? This is insanity. We're about on elections. We want election integrity. We don't want people questioning elections.
Right.
And he said, and so they won't question elections. And we're trying to do everything we can to ensure that elections are legit. So only Americans should be able to vote in federal elections.
Yeah.
Seems to be pretty cut and dry.
Right. Right.
Nope, not for Democrats. And then they brought up again the legislation to ensure that Title IX stays with its original intent of Title IX, where unelected officials, fascism, no democracy.
Right.
Biden comes in, and Obama first started it. Then Biden comes in and says, no, Title IX wasn't talking about biological men and women. It was talking about what you feel you are. Well, Every Democrat listening right now knows that's a load of whoopee poopy.
Yep. It's complete garbage.
I'm going to use that from now on. Instead of saying BS, I can do whoopee poopy.
Yeah.
But everybody knows it. And those are the three things they hit yesterday. And it's like, yes.
Mm-hmm.
If you've listened to the show, you know why I'm going, yes. because it's what we said. Take the 3 or 4 things and pound it. But let's get to some more of the insanity yesterday. This is Pete Doocy from Fox News, who was not called on the day before, and that seemed to be news in itself.
Right.
Here's the back and forth between him and Karine Jean-Pierre yesterday.
Why doesn't anybody in the president's family urge him just to go to get checked out to say the coast is clear?
Okay, so just to step back just a little bit, because I think you weren't in the briefing room last week. I don't want to go backwards, but just to share a little bit about that night. The president said it was a bad night. He talked about it. He had a cold, right? He talked about his schedule, right?
Now, we all know she's not answering the question, as we all know.
Yeah.
Obviously, because it's like, why don't they just, because that's the logical, that's the question right there, because everybody knows that's the question. It's like logical. Okay, that was horrible. You can clear this up. Have him take cognitive testing right now to clear it up.
Right.
Well, let's go back. The president said he has a cold. We already know that. You're repeating stuff we already know. That's not the question. You're not answering the question. By the way, they should be hitting her harder on that. You're not answering the question. No, you answered the question. You answered a question that I didn't ask.
Right.
But let's continue with it. Here we go.
Being abroad. And so we've spoke about what that night was like for him. And we understand what the American people saw, what you all saw. We've spoken to that. And I also would say, and I think you know this, Peter, you've covered a couple of administrations at this point, that the president, every president, has a White House medical unit that is with him 24/7, that is available to him 24/7.
Again, I'm stopping it. She's not answering the question, as we all know, and she's filibustering here, but she's not answering the question. It's everybody knows. What is it? 80% of America knows. Was it 82% last week? I think the number was.
Yeah.
Maybe it's too. It's like you're not addressing the concerns of Americans. You're just filibustering.
Right.
Okay. Continue.
That is unlike any other American, right? That is not the norm. That is uncommon. Just down on the other side of the colonnade is where the medical unit is. Because
we all wanted to know where the medical unit was geographically located.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I keep interrupting, but I have to.
Did share that the president checks in while he's exercising with his doctor a couple times a week. And so he has something that majority of Americans, all Americans I would probably argue, don't have, which is a full medical unit that is with him at all times. And he gets a full physical, annual physical that we share with all of you. And that is very different than an everyday American who sometimes they're lucky if they can go get a physical. They have to get into a car. They have to take public transportation. The president has, again, a medical unit that's with him here at the White House.
I guess the question is just, you're saying this is not a situation where you would rather just not know if there is an issue with the president, because if he does get a bad result, it is all over. He has to leave office right away. Can't run for re-election.
First of all, it's a hypothetical, right? That you're giving me a hypothetical. But I will also say, just to clear this up, the White House medical unit, his doctor.
Okay, we're going the same thing. She never answers never actually answers the question whatsoever. Let me get the other thing here that I wanted to make sure that we got. I believe this is Doocy here. Here we go.
President Biden has told me before he and his son don't have any business dealings together. So what is Hunter Biden doing in White House meetings?
Are you talking about the meeting where they came together from Camp David and the two of them walked to the president's meeting and he was there?
There's a report that aides were struck by his presence during their discussions.
Look, I'm certainly not going to get into private conversations that are...
So Kevin McCarthy just said that when he was the speaker, many times when we had meetings in the Oval Office, Jill was there as well. When the First Lady's in these meetings, is she making decisions or is she just advising the president?
No, the president is the president of the United States. He makes decisions.
Okay. Another family member. President Biden has told me before he and his son don't...
Okay, that was I wanted to get to the question that was asked before that. Okay, and here's more of Doocy yesterday. Okay, here's the auto cut I want to play. All right.
Well, he also said he's sharpest before 8 p.m. So, say that the Pentagon at some point picks up an incoming nuke. It's 11 p.m. Who do you call? The First Lady?
He has a team that lets him know of any news that is pertinent and important to the American people. He has someone that is decided, obviously, with his National Security Council on who gets to tell him that news.
Which wasn't the question, really.
No. That's not the question. Wow. Because what you're saying is he would still make the decision, which, of course, is the case. But you can't say that out loud. He has a team. He has a team that would notify him. He has a team. It's a team. He's surrounded by people.
Who makes the decision?
And, by the way, that was a horrible way to answer that. From her perspective. Not from a logical perspective. It was a horrible, because what she's saying is, hey, rest easy. There's a lot of other people there involved.
Yeah. Well, who was it? What publication the other day that we read suggested that AI would be good for the president?
Yeah, right.
Edit everything that he says.
Exactly.
Basically, the liberal press was saying you need to cheap fake and deep fake.
Yeah.
On the video,
you need to
president.
go full on cheap fake, deep fake. After saying, well, we're not gonna release the recording of the interview of the president regarding the special counsel. So, because we believe that people on the right would create a cheap fake. There would be cheap fakes in that phrase that they made up to sound like deep fake. And now you have one publication going, hey, how about that cheap fake? Can we do that like always?
Could help Biden.
Wow.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara along with Eric Harley. All right, more audio here. This from CNN. Never Trumper Jonah Goldberg with former Obama advisor Kate Bedingfield yesterday on CNN. You ready?
All right.
All right. Just I'll just play it. Don't even need to have a preamble to this.
Right.
Here we go.
But he's the president of the United States right now, so he got back
barely
and became president of the United States.
President for the last 12
years.
Barely.
What does that mean?
I don't think he's up to the job. I'm questioning his fitness right now to serve as president.
If you're saying barely president, you're suggesting that he's not capable of doing the things that we've seen him accomplish in these
last 3.5 years mean nothing to me. Nothing to me, and I think it's a crazy argument. You know, in financial markets, financial firms are required by law to say past performance is not predictive of future results. That same principle applies to politics. If you watch that George Stephanopoulos interview and were reassured that he's up to the job, then I think you're kind of in a bubble, because that was not reassuring. And when he says, and when Democrats say this election is about democracy and the future of the country, and then he says, well, if I lose, I gave it my best shot. Who cares? That is a terrible answer. He was clearly prepped, and he still gave a terrible answer.
Saying the last 3 years mean nothing to you when you have a president who has gotten more done in a bipartisan way than anybody thought was possible, has gotten meaningful gun legislation done, has gotten an infrastructure bill done.
If he had a heart attack, you wouldn't say, well, look what he did the last 3.5 years.
That's like saying it doesn't matter who's president, because it doesn't matter what happens when this person's in office. That's saying that only the campaign is the only thing that matters. I don't think that's true.
Campaigns are about the future.
And that's fine. I'm just saying the last 3.5 years don't matter at all.
It don't matter at all about whether or not he can do the job for the next 4 months or next 4.5 years. No, do you honestly think he can serve 4.5 more years?
I do. I
think that's lunatic. I really do. I think it's lunatic. You think he can actually serve for 4.5 more years?
You are entitled to your opinion.
And you are entitled to your crazy
and whatever octave you wish to talk in.
Yeah. Because that's how you convince someone, right? I'll try that at home. Honey, I didn't eat the Oreos.
I love it. Well, he's running on his record and where he stands on the issues.
Yeah.
That the majority of the issues that people, the top issues people tell you are their top issues, roughly 70% of the people disagree with.
And his record has nothing to do with, in terms of his cognitive decline, his record has nothing to do with that. The issues are the issues, and, of course, none of them are going to say, well, he's wrong on all the issues.
Right.
I mean, this is CNN. And it's something that they're not going to bring up, and you have to. That's the weight of everything right now. That was what was carrying the momentum for Trump before the debate, and so now you look at it, and when the polls show, when the Emerson poll showed Biden is still the one who performs best against Trump. It's the issues.
Well, in that back and forth, Bedingfield, she is lunatic, but Jonah Goldberg, he's a never-Trumper who hates Trump so much.
Yeah.
He knows that because of the cluster created by the Democrats and by Biden, he believes Trump's going to win, and that just infuriates him.
Yeah, it does.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Well, Republicans finally were able to comment officially on everything that's been going on over the last 10 days. Here is Representative Chip Roy from Texas yesterday at the House Leadership Press Conference.
Well, I want to thank Chairwoman Stefanik. I want to thank the entire Republican leadership team, particularly the Speaker. Republicans are united. We are united behind a simple notion that I think at least 81% of Americans, maybe as high as 87%, depending on which poll you look at, believe in a simple concept, that only American citizens should vote in American elections, as Elise just said. Not surprisingly, our Democrat colleagues, in particular the President, yesterday in his statement of administration policy, take a different view. They don't believe that we should require only citizens vote. Our legislation is very simple. It's already unlawful, as our Democratic colleagues like to point out, for non-citizens to vote. But unfortunately, we don't have a mechanism for ensuring that that is the case because the courts have interpreted the law to prevent that. So our legislation simply fixes that. Our legislation provides for ample avenues for American citizens to be able to vote. In no way will Americans' right to vote be hampered, but instead we will ensure the integrity of our elections by requiring that we have documentary proof of citizenship to vote. Like, this is simple. You either want to preserve and protect what it means to be a citizen in the United States and preserve and protect this great country and do what the vast majority of Americans want to do, and that's what Republicans want to do, or you go down the path that our Democrat colleagues want to go down, which is to try to continue to prop up open borders and the efforts to, frankly, undermine the integrity of the elections by allowing people to vote who have no business voting and making the decisions for our country. I'm really proud of the work that Republicans have done on this. This is very simple, and I think the American people will see it for exactly what it is. Republicans who want to stand on the side of the average, hardworking American family who simply wants their country back. That's what this legislation does. And we'll see what happens on the floor of the House. I hope all Republicans will support it. I expect they will. And we'll see what Democrats do in the face of a president who clearly is standing against the will of the American people, that only citizens should vote.
pretty slam dunk.
Yep.
I was still shocked on vacation last week because it was actually being promoted. You know, it was like, all right, Democrats are coming back now. Democrats next week, they're going to unite. They're going to unite against the Republicans.
Yeah.
And the Republicans' effort to ensure that only Americans vote in federal elections. What? This is what you believe is your silver bullet? This is what's going to take down the Republicans? You're going to argue and unite around the fact that you believe that non-U.S. citizens should be voting in elections? That's what that's what's going to save your party? That was the delusion that I got because it was almost, we're going to unite against the Republicans on this. Wow.
It's as if they showed up to the world's largest fire and said, some people say if you bring enough gasoline, the gasoline will actually put out the fire. They're just making it worse, and they don't get it. But again, this is their delusional state that they live in constantly. They believe they're being heroes. Well, they believe that this is the fastest way to rig an election. If they can get this done from state to state, the fact of the matter is the Republicans, by bringing this up, I mean, it's been all over social media. And by taking this on, going head to head with them, you're forcing the Democrats, you're basically calling their bluff on this whole thing.
Right. Now, looking at it, putting on my political consultant hat here, this is the time that you do it because the Democrats are in complete disarray.
Mm-hmm.
And you could tell because when they came out last week and said, we're going to unite against the Republicans, we're going to stop this effort to have only Americans vote in American elections. We're going to stop. It's just like, I feel like Banya on Seinfeld. This is gold. And so you've got to take that if you're Republican and you've got to run with it. Mm. And that's what they're doing. They're doing it on the whole thing about the media and the Democrats lying about Biden for such a long time. Then they hit the American elections. They hit the border, and then they hit Title IX. Because I think those are the things that people will look at, especially like the Title IX thing. People now aren't afraid to talk.
Right.
And we said women were eventually going to have to come out and do it, but you don't hear a lot of Democrats trying to sell it any longer. They knew they could never sell the radical transgender movement.
Right.
And so that's why they said, if you're talking about it, I'm offended by you even talking about it because if you talk about it, that means that transgenders will commit suicide because their suicide rate is a lot higher. Well, then we need to be talking about it because then maybe you shouldn't be chopping off private parts of children if you're saying that it is such a huge mental problem because transgenders themselves are attempting to commit suicide. Maybe we should think about that. Well, then you have no defense on it.
If your defense is, there's a huge mental health crisis.
That's what their argument was. That therefore you can't talk about it.
Right.
Because they're so mentally unstable that they'll commit suicide. That's the argument they're making.
Right.
I can imagine somebody, I can't believe you said that. I'm repeating what the opposition is saying the argument is, and you can't do it. Now, you had Speaker Mike Johnson also come up and say a few words at yesterday's GOP House Leadership Press Conference.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Thank you all for being here on what is, I believe, the smallest crowd ever assembled for a Republican press conference. I don't know where everybody is this morning. Oh, they're chasing down the Democrats for a change. This is a really interesting phenomenon. And the reason it's so noteworthy and the reason that most of the Hill press are following the Democrats around now, we had almost no one outside our conference meeting this morning. Normally, you're all there gathered in the hallways. They're busy because they're chasing down our Democrat colleagues and asking them about Joe Biden's mental acuity and their efforts to cover it up. And that's what it's been. I mean, we could give you example after example after example. It's all on tape. It's all on record. Everybody knows it. Democrats, our colleagues, for 3.5 years have been covering up this glaring problem. The staff in the White House have been covering it up, and so have the Democrats in Congress. Just last month, I brought a couple of examples. Representative Dan Goldman said Biden was sharper than anyone he'd spoken to and that he has, quote, a photographic memory, unquote. Representative Eric Swalwell said that Biden put many of us to shame with his energy. I mean, there are example after example after example, leading Democrats and noteworthy Democrats on the Hill who have not been in the dark about this. They've been saying things I think most of them understand is simply not true, and they've misled the American people. And this is dangerous. We have the NATO summit going on, the 75th anniversary of NATO here, all of our guests from around the world. What we're projecting from the White House is not strength right now, at a very dangerous time around the world. And that's why the American people are so alarmed by this. That's why the polls say that most of the Americans, people understand that Joe Biden is not fit for that office. And it's a terrible thing. The Democrats have misled us, and they need to be held accountable for that. They've also been misleading everybody about the SAVE Act, which will be on the floor that you've heard about this morning. It's a very important piece of legislation. They're claiming to oppose the bill because they say it's going to make it harder to vote, but they know that that is not true. Many of the Democrats want all of these illegals to participate in our federal elections. They want them to vote. There's no other conclusion that you can draw. When the White House announced they would veto the bill, they effectively handed our elections over to all of these illegal aliens that have come here. And the number is far greater than what is being reported. We were in conference this morning. One of our colleagues from the state of Kentucky was down at the Texas border over the last week. And he was there with top border officials. It was down south of Laredo. And he said that he and the colleagues that were there personally witnessed 9 illegals cross the border and disappear into the woods. And 2 Border Patrol agents tried to follow them on foot, and they lost them. And they came back, and our colleagues then asked, well, how will you account for those numbers, to send to DHS so they can add them to the number? And they said, we can't count them. What do you mean? Well, the Secretary and DHS does not allow us to count anyone unless we can say conclusively that they didn't cross back over the border and go back. And we lost them in the woods, so we don't know. So they don't even count in the got-away numbers. This is how it's being done. Whatever number you think, whatever number is being reported is grossly underreported. I've been saying for some time I think it's probably close to 16 million. That may be an underestimate. And it's a serious problem. And we cannot allow a federal election to be jeopardized by people who can run into the local welfare office, sign up for taxpayer benefits, and check a box that says, I'm a citizen and I want to vote. This is common sense legislation. Chip Roy has done an extraordinary job. Others have, preparing this, getting it ready. We have to make sure that we don't have an election that is flawed in this way. In states that are trying to catch these criminals, they're identifying thousands of illegal aliens who are indeed registering and trying to vote. Some states have already done their own audits. This will make sure that we can prevent this from happening, and so we've got to do this. You should ask every Democrat, if they're voting against this legislation, how in the world they can justify it. On the Title IX CRA, we'll be voting on that. It's very important. You've heard it articulated several times this morning. I won't reiterate it, but I'll say 2 weeks ago, we had an event here on the Hill celebrating the 52nd anniversary of Title IX. And we had Chairwoman Virginia Fox and Congresswoman Mary Miller, who has brought the CRA. We had Heather Higgins at the Independent Women's Forum. We had former Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, and we had Riley Gaines there, some strong voices who advocate for safety and the protection of women in college athletics and in every other way. And it's interesting that the Democrats are on the wrong side of this. Also, a couple of weeks ago, just a few days before that event, Judge Terry Doty from the Western District of Louisiana, a federal judge, issued an injunction against the Biden administration rule that eviscerates Title IX and jeopardizes the safety of women. Here's what he said about it. Quote, in the injunction, this case demonstrates the abuse of power by executive federal agencies in the rulemaking process, and this abuse of power is a threat to democracy. We completely agree with that. Unlike Democrats, Republicans know what a woman is, and we know that women are worth protecting. We are trying to advance that cause. The Republican Party is pro-women. And the Democrats have to answer for that as well. More than 2/3 of Americans think that only women should be allowed to compete in women's sports, and this used to be common sense, and everyone agreed until the Biden administration, and they tried to upend that. I'm very grateful that we're going to be able to get this passed through the House. We'll send it to the Senate, and we will dare Chuck Schumer and the Democrats over there not to take up and pass the SAVE Act and not to take up the CRA on Title IX.
There you go. Hitting everything that you have to hit.
Yep. And this is what we have wanted the Republicans to do for a while. They sometimes do it. But coming back from the break, from the Independence Day break, along with the implosion that's going on with the left, you have to go at them on the issues. And you have to stay on it. There is nothing that is a given. You have to stay on this because what you're looking at right now is an opportunity. I think they see this. Hopefully they see this. And the opportunity is for that down ballot effect, but you're going to have to do more than just assume it's going to happen if Trump is going to win in a landslide or even outperform what the polls have him doing right now. We already know Democrats are afraid of the down ballot effect with Biden being the way he is. A handful of them officially spoke out. But the fact is that the Republican Party has to earn it, too. All they have to do is point. And officially, this is pointing. Let's make some moves where you put them up against the wall. And let's see how they vote. And then you take that to your constituents and show them. And along with the down ballot effect in November, the issues which have been working for you, if you're a Republican, are going to work even further.
866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Reading here from X from last night, John Podhoretz, who was watching the entire Trump rally, and he said, if you're watching Trump's rally in Florida right now, you're seeing something new. He's utterly without anger. Everything else is the same, but no anger. Also sounding very much like Rubio is the pick.
Yeah, the past few days, it's been pointing more and more to Marco Rubio as the B pick. We're going to find out. Yeah. It'll be just a matter of days now before we find out.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here this morning. When we look at the situation that Joe Biden is in right now, we know that the Democratic leadership has shown their full support, but the media is not. New York Times doubled down yesterday, saying he's still got to go. You had, for example, as we said, the Senator Bennett from Colorado say no, he doesn't think he can last 4 years and shouldn't be running. George Stephanopoulos got hit by TMZ saying it. I love that ABC comes on and says those are his personal opinions.
We don't share those views.
What he says does not reflect the opinion of ABC or ABC News. Well, nobody thought it did.
Right.
That's what Stephanopoulos, and that's important news because we know what a homer he is for the Democrats.
Right, yeah.
But it's never ending in the media. This is NBC now. This is NBC News. Yesterday, where they found a Parkinson's expert. I mean, think about this. This is NBC. This is what's being broadcast out there now as they're bringing in a Parkinson's expert, to find out, does the president show signs of it?
To talk more about those 8 White House visits by the Parkinson's expert, I'm joined tonight by Dr. Tom Pitts. He's a quadruple board-certified neurologist. He sees patients with Parkinson's all the time. He diagnoses it. I want to be completely transparent here. You've never examined President Biden. From my knowledge, you've never even spoken yet to President Biden.
Been in the same room as
and we're just going to use what we have so far, which is what we've seen, the president's interviews, and the information coming out of the White House. So my first question to you is, as somebody who's a neurologist, what you've seen from the president over the last 2 years, what you saw at the debate, the last few interviews, the way he speaks, the way maybe he walks, have you noticed anything that gives you a red flag as a doctor?
Oh, yeah, I see him 20 times a day in clinic. I mean, it's ironic because he has just such classic features of neurodegeneration. I mean, word finding difficulties, and that's not, I couldn't find the word. That's from degeneration of the word retrieval area.
He's also overcome stuttering, though. Could that be part of that, too?
No, this is not a palatal issue or a speech discrepancy, which is very different from a lemmonode dysfunction, actual word retrieval, where you pick a similar question or talk around the issue, plus the rigidity, monotone voice.
Wait, go back to that, the rigidity. What do you mean?
Rigidity, loss of arm swing, standing up lordically. You notice when he turns, it's kind of end block turning. It's not a quick turn. So that's one of the hallmarks of Parkinsonism is rigidity and bradykinesia, slow movement. And he has that hallmark, especially with the low voice that said was a cold hypophonia. A small monotone voice like this over time is a hallmark of Parkinsonism. I could have diagnosed him from across the mall.
Here are some of the symptoms from Parkinson's. We just had him up there on the screen. If we can put him back. What about the movement? Some people have pointed out the way he walks. Sometimes it's not very fast, small steps. Is that something that is common in people who are battling a disease like Parkinson's?
Yeah, it's a hallmark. Shuffling gait, we call that, so little steps. Loss of arm swing from the rigidity. When we walk, we have a nice cadence. You notice he doesn't really swing his arms. And end block turning, meaning he kind of pivots around his foot. If you said, hey, President Biden, he wouldn't go like this. So, yeah.
But I also know, and tell me if I'm wrong here, it's very hard to diagnose Parkinson's, isn't it? It's not simple. I mean, I've heard that it can be.
It's one of the easier movement disorders to diagnose, actually.
Right,
but it's so clinic. There's very little other. And I'm a Democrat. I always say about this.
Right.
It's just like this guy is not a hard case.
But I've had relatives who have gone through neurological issues, and I've heard that sometimes Parkinson's is not very easy to nail. You have to take a lot of tests.
It's early on, if you're just presented with like hallucinations, that could be a variety of things, or just the cognitive problems. That could be Alzheimer's versus Parkinsonism, and that becomes a little nebulous. But once you start manifesting the hallmark motor symptoms,
right,
slow movement, rigidity, mass facies, hypophonia. I mean, if a med student did not pick Parkinson's on the test, they'd be remediated.
So let me ask you, if you had, and I know you can't. You have no idea what happened in the White House, but a neurologist coming 8 times in 8 months, does that tell you anything? Is that? I mean, I know you're just sort of speculating here, but does that tell you anything or no?
Well, I mean, I don't know if they're like the best of friends or something, but that's a very specific, he's a movement disorder. That's a subspecialist in exactly what he has. And there's very few young people, like a Marine Guard. Most people would be med boarded out for any type of movement disorder at a young age. Like if you had Huntington's chorea, early onset Parkinson's, dystonia, bad essential tremor, you're usually med boarded out. So I highly doubt there's.
What does that mean, med boarded out?
Med boarded mean the military would not let you, if you have seizures, for example, you cannot usually be in the military. That is, you are
so
medical
you're saying you don't necessarily believe, and they're not saying this, but they said there's thousands of military members that go to the White House and are treated there for health reasons.
Yeah.
You're not buying that that's a random military person.
No, that would be very odd to just see a random movement disorder case at the White House, especially a young guard. There aren't many young people that have movement disorders that could be in the military.
And then, a lot of people have called for a cognitive test. What exactly would that entail? What does that mean?
Now, that's the key, because word finding, retrieval, doesn't necessarily mean you don't know what you want to say. What I cannot comment on is his ability to make good decisions. His motor symptoms are degenerating. He has Parkinsonisms. That is a fact. He has degeneration of the brain. Show me the MRI. Show me he doesn't. Put your money where your mouth is. He definitely has it. But the problem is, when you look at his situation, you can't say, oh, I know for a fact that because he didn't retrieve the word, he didn't know what he wanted to say. And that's why both him and Trump should take the 4-hour neuropsychological testing, which is the hallmark test for cognitive performance.
What do you do in this test?
A lot of things. So, for example, they may have you say as many words as you can in a minute that start with F. Block building, retrieval. I may say cup and have you recall it 3 minutes later. Trail drawing. These are done with a professional, PhD in neuropsychology. Has nothing to do with psychiatry. And we can tell if you have vascular.
It's 4 hours long?
4 hours. It's a full day. We tell people, bring a snack. It is a full day. And so not the MOCA, which was a bedside test that President Trump took. These are tests that are screening tests. They don't rule in, if you do great.
There's no way to sort of lie in this test, to sort of ace it even though you're sick.
No way. This one it will come out in the wash. For example, if I do the bedside exam to an accountant and I ask them, what's 100 minus 7? Even the worst neurodegenerative patient, if they worked at a high education level or something like that, is going to get that right. But in the 4-hour test, it will come out.
Finally, you said you're a Democrat, you're a doctor. You sound like you're frustrated with what the White House is saying.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, because, I'm an American before everything. And I look at it and say, when I used to see Russia, Soviet Union, North Korea, when they just make outrageous things, like when North Korea can't keep the lights on and they say, oh, it was some faulty power thing. I kind of hate that kind of stuff. They had 4 years, my own party had 4 years to find, this was a wreck in slow motion. And they had 4 years to find, out of 350 Americans, one person that could take the place. And here we are the day before school trying to do the homework and replace a guy who's got a neurodegenerative disease.
Doctor.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's NBC.
Yeah. And you see something like, because it sounds like something off of Fox and Friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you see this, and it's what a lot of us, again, non-professional family caretakers have witnessed. I had mentioned a couple months ago, the way that he walks, the deliberate stepping in some cases, but also the shuffling, and it varies. Sometimes there's a deliberate step where his foot is coming up and then it's landing flat. Each foot is landing flat. He's not walking heel to toe like we normally walk. Okay? And walking isn't necessarily an autonomic function, but we kind of walk when we're walking. We're not always thinking about walking. When you witness someone who has a neurodegenerative disease, you understand how they have to, or any physical disability, they quite often have to be more deliberate and thinking of how they're stepping. He mentions the Parkinson's. That's, one thing, again, a lot of us have been familiar with it with family members who have it, and you see it and you understand what is going on with their body. It's the stiffening, it's the gait. We talked about the fact that he doesn't move his arms. So we know that there was something wrong, a definite shift in who he was before, physically and mentally, and what's going on now. And there is a decline. And we can all see it. We're not doctors. We're not neurologists. We don't have to be. Because the only question for the American voter isn't necessarily what's wrong with him. It's, is there something wrong with him to the extent that he can't perform his duties as president? And the answer is yes. There's no way around that. I don't have to be a doctor. I don't have to be a neurologist. We all know this, and a half dozen people right now are keeping him from stepping down, including him.
Well, I think one of the things the doctor said that could pressure the administration to do a cognitive test is what the doctor said there, that when you have Parkinson's, you may not be able to complete the sentence, but you know in your mind what you wanted to say.
Right.
And the only thing that could tell whether you have that or not would be a cognitive test.
Right.
And so if you had a number of doctors, you had that doctor on NBC say, no, obviously this is Parkinson's. You've got all the, I said anybody could diagnose this. This is he was almost indignant, like, this is stupid. We all know it's Parkinson's.
Right.
I'm not a doctor. I don't know that. I'm just relating how he said it, which is why you were going through the point by point of the actual, science and observation of Parkinson's. To me, I was looking at it politically going, oh, my God, is this damaging? Because he's a Democrat and his attitude is this is obvious. Anybody could diagnose this if you have any medical knowledge at all about Parkinson's. If you're a doctor, these are the signs of Parkinson's. Well, then if he has it, then the next thing is, well, then do we know when it appears he's not thinking right, is he or is he not? The only way you can tell that is through a cognitive test.
Yeah.
Cognitive testing.
Right. And, the freezing, that's also something that's also one of the hallmarks of Parkinson's. And it doesn't happen to every Parkinson's patient, but they will often tell the patient, okay, there are ways to basically bring yourself out of the freezer. Somebody else next to you can, let's say a former president, if they happen to be next to you on a stage at a fundraiser, can kind of pull you out of that freeze. That also can happen if you are having cognitive decline and there's some kind of dementia going on. But there was again, stepping back from it, we all observe it. We all see it. Millions of us are caretakers and see it firsthand on a regular basis. And they wanted you to believe up to the point of the debate that you weren't seeing what you were seeing, that your eyes were lying to you. And that is not the case. And, now you have a neurologist who's telling NBC. Again, we have to remind our audience, that was not Fox and Friends.
Yeah, it wasn't Newsmax.
Exactly. This
was an OAN.
Telling NBC and making it very clear he's a Democrat. He's frustrated that his party didn't do a search out of the 350 million Americans to find somebody who could run.
And not only did they have 3.5 years, but I think the other reason that he's angry, that he's furious, is because they lied.
Yeah.
They just didn't lie to Republicans.
Yep.
They lied to Democrats.
Right.
And the media kept the lie going. Same thing we said about Obamacare. In Obamacare, Obama lied to Democrats. Mm-hmm. He wasn't going to get Republican votes. Mm-hmm. He lied to Democrats to get Democrat support. The same thing here. They're lying to Democrats so Biden would be in the position where he is now, where it's almost impossible to get rid of him. But everybody was in on the lie. The media knew it was going on and didn't want to face it.
Right.
They didn't wish to address it. Democrats knew it. The administration obviously knew about it, and they lied to the American public and deceived the American public. But who they were focusing on deceiving was actually Democrats in order to win the primary.
Yeah.
Get the primary votes. Right. Think about this. Until a couple of weeks ago, they didn't want to wait till the convention to have the vote.
Right.
Just a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
They wanted it ASAP, and it still may be ASAP.
Right.
Because they want him in there before America knows, and Democrats know that, as the doctor, I think, is stating from the doctor's point of view, I'm not a doctor, but he's got Parkinson's, and he may have, cognitive problems. There may be some dementia in there. We don't know.
Right.
But obviously he has Parkinson's from that Democrat doctor's point of view.
Right. He said he could Diagnose them from across the mall.
Which means what's going to happen now? What's all the local media, what's all the media going to do now? They're going to go to doctors and ask them whether he has Parkinson's and whether these are the signs of Parkinson's.
Right.
And it just keeps building and building and building and building.
Yep.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. Drivers must always be prepared for a roadside inspection. This means drivers should always have their personal, vehicle, and company credentials organized and ready, and having any shipment paperwork such as bills of lading or hazardous materials shipment emergency response information organized and ready for the inspection official. Just an FYI, the top 2 violations written against drivers every year, as well as during Operation Road Check, are log, general form and manner, and log not current. Both are completely avoidable if the driver keeps the log accurate, compliant, and current at all times. Having the vehicle ready for inspection involves the driver conducting daily inspections and making sure any problems that are discovered are immediately corrected. Vehicle readiness also requires the company to make sure that the vehicle is current on all scheduled maintenance and that the maintenance schedule is adequate. This will make sure the driver is being given a sound vehicle to start with. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller & Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. More audio coming up showing that Democrats, they don't know where to go with this. They really don't. Plus, is Biden trailing by more than the polls show? Really interesting article from Real Clear Politics, and everybody uses the Real Clear Politics average, as the benchmark as to what's going on, but. Every single day that you come to like a middle of the week now, and tomorrow, Thursday, will be 2 weeks since the debate.
Mm-hmm.
And they're no closer to getting Biden out than they were the day after.
Yeah, it's interesting how I think you're going to see more and more polls now that reflect, and we said, look, watch the post-debate polls. And with Independence Day week being done, the pollsters getting into it, now we're going to get into the convention season, the next week, the GOP, and then coming up in August, you have possibly the DNC. And we'll see where it goes, but the pollsters will be hard at work, and the polls will start to reflect more and more the post-debate effect. And tell me what would improve Biden's numbers between now and November 5th. What would turn things around for him? I can't think of one thing.
Call and join the conversation. 1-866-90-RED-EYE. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here this morning. Well, just going through the social media, you see a lot of doctors now being interviewed about the condition of the president, especially concerning Parkinson's.
Right.
And this was on News Nation last night, and they had on Dr. Drew. And here's part of this conversation.
If the White House isn't going to start talking about the president's medical conditions honestly, is it fair now for doctors to start speculating about it?
You know, it's never fair to speculate about the diagnosis, but we are certainly at our liberty to describe what we see. Let me just say that when doctors are trained in medical school, we are shown images, pictures, say, of rashes, so we learn what rashes are when we see them out in the clinic. And when it comes to neurological diseases, we watch videos of people with things like movement disorders, and a video that would be exemplary of movement disorder would be watching Joe Biden walk, watching his arm swing, watching his lack of facial expression. These are a constellation of symptoms that are called Parkinsonian. Now, whether he has Parkinson's disease or not, that's what's not fair. No one should be speculating on what his diagnosis is. We don't know. A lot of things cause Parkinsonian features, but it is completely reasonable to say we are seeing motoric slowing, festinating gait, masked faces, slow speech. Let me just tell you what speech the Parkinson's Foundation says a Parkinsonian speech is. Stuttering, mumbling, slurring words, using monotone, speaking softly, having trouble projecting voice. This is all a Parkinsonian. So he's got multiple. The only thing he doesn't have is tremor that we can see at least. So this is simply a fact. I'm just describing what we are seeing, which are Parkinsonian features. Now, we can speculate. The one thing that happens to a doctor when he or she sees a list of these observable findings, we start thinking, well, what are the kinds of things that could cause those? I could give you that list. I can't tell you which one applies to him. None of them are particularly reassuring.
Thanks for watching. Go to...
There you go. Okay, that's a News Nation.
I mean, again, it's because the diagnosis itself isn't really required in terms of the confidence of the people, the American voter, for him to be president any longer. His cognitive state is clear cognitive decline, and whatever is going on with him physically. I think the physical part of it is, depending on, again, what it's related to, is secondary to the cognitive issues, because he needs to be able to make decisions. And a president can do that from a chair. They can do that from their office. They don't necessarily have to be running a 440 relay every day physically. But we see the decline. So the big picture is, again, now, and as you see more and more news outlets after the news came out, after the report came out, that a Parkinson's specialist has visited the White House several times since last August. You know, all of this will be questioned by the media. And it's not just the right media anymore. The mainstream media, the left media, they also want these answers because they're also frustrated. They're frustrated that their party, the one they favor clearly, did not do something early on, did not offer up somebody else. They're also frustrated over Biden's defiance and his arrogance, which is right now fully in play, but has been from day one. They showed up at in the newsroom, in the press room rather, for their talking points, and time again, they've been, handed this and that, but never got their talking points the way they would typically get them from a liberal administration. And so they're frustrated by that. And Biden is he's somebody who will argue with somebody on his own side. The only people he's seemingly not arguing with, at least we haven't seen it in public, are Jill and Hunter. And that's, I think, the frustration right now by the media. They saw it for themselves. They know that everybody else saw it. What you're seeing right now is the reaction by the left when it was on full display on a debate stage, and they know now that it can't be denied. They knew it before.
Yeah.
But when it was on display nearly 2 weeks ago, and they're going, oh, everybody's going to see this, and there's no way we can hide it. That's when they had to come out and act like they were learning it for the first time.
And that's a question that needs to be asked. I don't believe that's been asked in this way to Karine Jean-Pierre. And that's the fact that you say it was one day off, but you've got Democrats now that say he has to go. Are Democrats unfair? Because you're saying this is just one bad night. So you're saying that all these Democrats that are now panicking, the New York Times, the Washington Post, Morning Joe, you're talking about the bastion of liberal media out there is saying he has to go,
right?
That he just can't do it when they held diametrically opposed opinions. Is everybody making a decision based on one bad night? Or is this the acknowledgement that Republicans have been telling the truth all the time and Democrats and the Democrat media have been lying? Ask that one and see what her response is.
Right.
I can't answer that because of the Hatch Act.
Yeah, right. She'll bring out the Hatch Act for the first time in months.
Because that's the thing. And I don't even know if Democrats understand, because they can be such, Democrats right now are in such a bubble. And that evidence, the bubble, is that they will proudly say, a man can be a woman because a man says so. What?
Yeah.
And young girls should get used to male genitalia in the locker room.
Right.
You can only be in your bubble of delusion to believe that. So if you're in that type of delusion, you've got to assume that delusion is across the board. In the party where they sit there and he's got to go, he's got to go, he's got to go. He can't do it. Well, you were just saying 2 weeks ago this was a cheap fake.
Right. Yeah.
So now are you admitting that you've been lying this entire time? Because people aren't stupid. People figure that one out.
Right.
Oh, wait a minute. We've known for years.
Right.
You're saying you just figured this out, and you're making your determination based on what the White House is one bad night? Because just a day before, you were saying that he was fine and he could go anywhere or do anything that he wanted, and we just can't keep up with them. The young people, he is. He's doing backflips. He's on the high wire.
Right.
He's hanging off a helicopter.
Right. He just bench pressed a tank.
Right.
Did you guys miss that?
And so do they even realize that by saying what they're saying, they're admitting to the public that isn't stupid on this? We've been lying to you for years.
Yeah. No, this is exactly it. And I think they're in such panic mode. Either they don't care to stop and think about it, or they just haven't, for whatever reason, stopped to think about how bad this is and what they're actually saying, what they're actually acknowledging now. And that is, we have 117 more days. This isn't just about what happened 2 weeks ago tomorrow. It's what is going to keep happening over and over again. Because it's one thing to give a speech from a prompter, but he's going to have these impromptu moments. What they say, the big boy press conference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Kirby said it the other day.
Is that going to happen?
Well, they've promised press conferences before that never happened.
Exactly.
I'm reading this from Axios. Just before House Democrats' Tuesday morning come to Jesus meeting on President Biden's path forward, a smaller group of swing district Democrats held what sources described as a despondent gathering with, quote, actual tears, end of quote.
Oh, man. Oh, wow.
Because that's the thing that as this continues, and you and I, for example, I think one example you can look at is Arizona and Gallego and the Kari Lake race.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, a couple of months ago, she was down by, some polls had her down 10, 13 points.
13 points, I think, was the highest.
Yeah, I've seen some polls now showing her in a tie or leading.
Yeah.
You know, you look at that, I mean, that's an example of the Democrats believing that Kari Lake was an extremely weak candidate.
Yeah. Right.
Because the polling showed them that she was weak, and all of a sudden, boom. Well, if that goes the way. And if you have, if is Minnesota as close as they say in some of those polls, or are those polls outliers for Trump taking, for example, Minnesota? And you see the number of worried senators now, especially, the story was out, is Biden trailing more than the polls show? And is that why there's the panic? Because Trump is leading Biden by 3.3 points in the RCP average after President Joe Biden's poor debate performance. On the day of the debate, Trump led by just 1.5 points. Even more concerning for Biden campaign is a comparison to 2020. 4 years ago today, Biden was leading by 8.8 points in the RCP average, a commanding lead in what shook out to be an incredibly close race in the Electoral College and 4.5% popular vote margin. Polls have always struggled to capture Trump's popularity. In 2016, Trump won the election over Hillary Clinton with 306 electoral votes, but 120 days before the election, Clinton was leading by 4.7 points in the RCP average and was ahead in all the swing states. But Trump won in eking out the electoral vote win. And what they're saying is, if you look at it, Trump's been underestimated anywhere between 2 and 4 points. So if Trump is actually up by 3 now, is he up by 7? Is that within the realm of possibility? And is that the fear that you're seeing in Democrats, why you would, this far out, have actual tears because they don't see a way out that's better than the situation that they're in right now?
Right. They've got no fix for this.
They
just have to wait out the inevitable.
As we said earlier, the 25th Amendment, politically speaking, not realistically, not the reality of whether it should be used or not, but the politics of it, it would be civil war inside the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
And it might not succeed because even it would have to be led by the leadership, and then Kamala Harris would have to be the leader of that.
Right.
Because she would be the president, and you'd need the majority of the cabinet. But then afterwards, right after that was done, okay, we're removing him. He can appeal to Congress, and you've got to get 2/3 of both the Senate and the House to agree to get rid of Biden.
Yeah.
If that didn't happen, you'd have the administration would be going crazy. There'd be a civil war. This was an alleged coup by the vice president. Yeah. There is no evidence. Because when you look at the 25th Amendment, it was really for, if you had a president that was in a coma, how would you do it? If the now there's the voluntary switch, the voluntary switches we've seen before. All right, we're undergoing some type of operation. The vice president will be taking over at that time.
Right.
That's not the case here.
Nope.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. Sorry, I was just watching the video of TMZ. Really, in a way, if you want to call it ambushing Stephanopoulos. I'm like, where's Stephanopoulos, the camera? He's the one in that weird jogging outfit.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, Stephanopoulos is jogging. Apparently, he left, Schmoopy's apartment.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, in case people didn't know it, George Stephanopoulos is married to Allie Wentworth, who was Schmoopy on Seinfeld, who was Seinfeld's girlfriend.
Right.
But he's just jogging. I'm like, where's the camera going? Why are they focused on this guy who's jogging? Oh, that's Stephanopoulos.
Yeah.
By the way, he's not very tall.
No, he isn't.
Yeah.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.